When Jeremy Corbyn's name was first put forward for the leadership of the Labour Party in 2015, it was possible to get 100-to-1 odds on him becoming leader. Many of those who supported him within the Parliamentary Labour Party did so because they wanted to broaden the debate, fearful that the party would be dragged to the right. Even Owen Jones, who had become one of Corbyn's biggest defenders in the media, didn't expect that he would win and feared that his presence in the contest had the potential to further discredit the left. In his words, he said, "My view was that, in the midst of general post-election demoralisation, a left candidate could end up being crushed. Such a result would be used by both the Labour Party establishment and the British right generally to perform the last rites of the left, dismiss us as irrelevant and tell us to shut up forever." To be fair to Owen Jones, nobody predicted that Corbyn would win the leadership, not even Corbyn himself. In fact, he only became the candidate because the Socialist Campaign Group, the left faction within the Labour Parliamentary Party, felt like they should put someone forward, and Diane Abbott had stood last time. Corbyn won the leadership because he tapped into a zeitgeist that still looms large in our politics. To put things simply, a significant number of people were and are fed up with electing a narrow political class who all seem to speak and sound the same, many of whom attended the same schools, mix in the same social circles, and crucially, don't seem connected with the concerns of ordinary people. Whatever else you might say about Corbyn, he wasn't like the rest of them, and many people liked this about him.
Is it right, in the fourth richest country in the world, we should allow 1 million people to rely on food banks? Let's defend the principle of a society that cares for everyone and everyone cares for everyone else.
During Corbyn's campaign for the leadership, he held rallies up and down the country, which attracted large crowds of supporters, a phenomenon that would be dubbed Corbyn mania. The Labour Party's membership also grew as people took advantage of the ability to register as a supporter and get a vote in the election for just £3 a month. The prospect of Corbyn winning led the right of the Labour Party to go on the attack, with one senior figure commenting that if Corbyn took over, it would be the party led by Karl Marx. Their view was that electing Corbyn would be self-indulgent, as it would render the party unelectable in the minds of the British public. But Tony Blair, former leader of the party and Prime Minister, went even further than this, commenting, quote, "I wouldn't want to win on an old-fashioned leftist platform. In other words, even if I thought it was the route to victory, I wouldn't take it."
There are no free hits in this leadership election. It's not just about who wins, it's the shakedown of the results. I've got nothing against Jeremy personally, but what I have got a problem with are his positioning and politics. I don't believe that is a politics that can win. I think actually, if you are Conservative, what kind of politics would you most want to win in this leadership election? It would be the politics that people associate with Jeremy. Weak on defence at a time when global insecurity is rising, more generous social security payments for people who can work but refuse to work, and mismanagement of our economic finances. That is not going to be able to get us elected.
In the end, it wasn't even close. Corbyn topped the poll in the first round with 59.5% of the vote, underlying one key strength of his leadership: he had the overwhelming backing of ordinary party members. In his first speech as leader, he thanked his leadership rivals and called for party unity to fight for change.
It was, Mr Corbyn told the party he now leads, a win that would signal change.
During this amazing 3 months, our party has changed. We've grown enormously. We've grown enormously because of the hopes of so many ordinary people for a different Britain, a better Britain, a more equal Britain, a more decent Britain. They're fed up with the inequality, the injustice, the unnecessary poverty. All those issues have brought people in a spirit of hope and optimism. And I say thank you in advance to us all working together to achieve great victories, not just electorally for Labour, but emotionally for the whole of our society, to show we don't have to be unequal, it doesn't have to be unfair, poverty isn't inevitable, things can and they will change. Thank you very much.
But although Corbyn won an overwhelming victory with ordinary party members, he inherited a parliamentary party where the opposite was the case. He'd scraped into the leadership contest with the support of only 36 MPs, and some of these people only supported him reluctantly and only to broaden the debate within the party. Had they known he would win, they never would have backed him. On top of this, he didn't have the support of many members of staff at Labour HQ, some of whom had tried to exclude people from voting in the leadership election in order to block Corbyn's leadership. And of course, Corbyn's politics represented a massive threat to vested interests in our society and disrupted many people's assumptions about politics, which meant that even mainstream media coverage was often hostile, with coverage in the right-wing print media being even more so. Inspired by his mentor and political protege, Tony Benn, Corbyn believed in democracy and therefore, as Labour leader, Corbyn saw himself as leading a movement for change that included but was not limited to the membership of the Labour Party. In taking this approach, he wanted to de-emphasise his own importance as leader, an approach that was emphasised when at his first Prime Minister's questions, instead of asking his own questions, he put to then Prime Minister David Cameron questions from ordinary voters.
And so I sent out an email to thousands of people and asked them what questions they would like to put to the Prime Minister. And I received 40,000 replies. Now,
in the early months of his leadership, it was clear that Corbyn was keen to unite the Labour Party behind his leadership. And so, when there was division within the cabinet and the party on whether Britain should engage in airstrikes in Syria, Corbyn allowed a free vote in the House of Commons, and he even allowed Hilary Benn MP to speak from the front bench in favour of airstrikes, when this was not his own view or the view of the majority of the parliamentary party. But Corbyn's critics were just biding their time, waiting for a moment to strike. They still viewed Corbyn as an electoral liability and wanted to remove him before the next election to pave the way for a leader from the party's right. And they felt they had found their opportunity as the EU referendum delivered a leave vote, which some in the Labour Party felt Corbyn was partly responsible for due to his alleged lukewarm campaigning for the Remain campaign. The day after the referendum, Margaret Hodge and Anne Coffey tabled a vote of no confidence in Corbyn's leadership, and 2 days later, Corbyn was forced to sack Hilary Benn for plotting a coordinated series of resignations from the shadow cabinet in order to force Corbyn's resignation. A day later, 23 out of 32 shadow cabinet members resigned, and a day after that, on the 28th of June, he lost a vote of confidence within the Labour Party by 172 votes to 40. There then followed an attempt to block Corbyn from standing in the leadership election that was triggered, but the National Executive Committee ruled that Corbyn could stand. But they attempted to limit the number of party members who could vote by excluding people who had just joined in the last 6 months from voting and putting a rule in place that registered supporters would need to pay £25 to be eligible. In the end, in the leadership election, which pitted Owen Smith against Jeremy Corbyn, Corbyn won 61.8% of the vote on a 77.6% turnout, perhaps the most resounding mandate any party leader has received in the history of the Labour Party.
I have just chaired a meeting of the Cabinet where we agreed that the government should call a general election to be held on the 8th of June.
Theresa May called an early general election on the 18th of April 2017 as her party were 20 points ahead in the polls. She was confident of victory, and pollsters, pundits and commentators all agreed that she was set, not just to win, but to win a landslide majority. At the time, she needed the support of 2/3 of Parliament to call an early general election, as the Fixed-Term Parliaments Act was still in place. But Corbyn was up for the fight, and the Labour right, convinced that Labour would lose, voted in favour, confident that this would provide an opportunity to prove how unelectable Labour was under Corbyn. Given what was expected, the result was and is incredible. Labour deprived Theresa May of a parliamentary majority and came within a few seats of creating a parliamentary arithmetic that would have meant that all bets were off about what would happen next. The result demonstrated that, in the right circumstances, a left-populist brand of politics could achieve 40% of the vote, which in most circumstances is enough to win a general election. It remains Labour's best result as a percentage of the vote since Blair's second landslide in 2001, and it is a major achievement of the Corbyn years, which is, but shouldn't be, overshadowed by the scale of the defeat that was to come in 2019. The Labour right had planned to use a poor result in 2017 as a pretext for removing Corbyn from the leadership, but instead, following the election, Corbyn's position as leader was solidified. At the time, it felt like it was quite possible that the May ministry might collapse in the near future, and that Labour under Corbyn would get another go at it. But in the end, her administration struggled on for another 2 years, trying and failing to get a Brexit deal through a recalcitrant Parliament, creating the perfect conditions for Johnson to come to power, promising to end the dither and delay and get Brexit done. Between 2017 and 2019, the divisions opened up by Brexit became polarised and many people's politics became defined by where they stood on the referendum. And this wasn't helped by the fact that the Parliament that had been elected in 2017 were just as divided as the country. Given the circumstances, one key failure of Corbyn's leadership in this period was his inability to give a lead on the central issue of the day, choosing instead, as a matter of democratic principle, to delegate Brexit policy to the 2019 Labour Party conference, which meant that Labour went into the 2019 election with a policy that was decided too late and which didn't define the party's position clearly enough in the minds of voters, especially compared to Boris Johnson's pledge to simply get Brexit done. Corbyn also faced accusations in the party and in the press that he wasn't doing enough to deal with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party in this period. As a later EHRC report into anti-Semitism in the Labour Party showed, there was truth in this charge, and it's clear that the Labour Party could and should have done more to protect Jewish people in the party in this period. However, it is also the case that the issue of anti-Semitism was used cynically by Corbyn's opponents in the party and in the press as a bludgeon with which to attack Corbyn and the left more generally. As Martin Ford QC concluded in an independent report, rather than confront the paramount need to deal with the profoundly serious issue of anti-Semitism in the party, both factions treated it as a factional weapon. In the 2019 election, Corbyn went into the election a more damaged man, leading a more toxic party and facing a far more hostile press. Most critically, however, whilst in the 2017 election it had proven possible to sideline the issue of Brexit in order to campaign on Labour's "for the many, not the few" message, in 2019 the issue of Brexit would totally dominate the campaign, allowing Johnson's Get Brexit Done campaign the space it needed to unite the right and win a majority of 80 seats in the House of Commons, thus ending Corbyn's leadership and opening up the space for the Labour right to recapture the Labour Party with an utterly cynical campaign by Keir Starmer in which he promised to deliver Corbynism without Corbyn, but then swiftly moved the party to the right as he saw this as necessary to win power. If the object of opposition is winning power, Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party failed and failed decisively. But Corbyn should not be dismissed as having achieved nothing. Corbyn moved the political debate in this country to the left, and in doing so widened the boundaries of what many people thought it was possible for politics to deliver. And it's worth pointing out to those who want this legacy to simply go away, it's rather difficult to put the toothpaste back in the tube, to employ a clumsy metaphor. And Corbyn's remarkable political achievement in winning the leadership and depriving Theresa May of majority in 2017 defied the expectations of all of the political experts and should have given them pause for thought about how and why this happened. What Corbyn tapped into was a deeply felt and widely held discontentment with mainstream politics, which is often dismissed as apathy and discontentment, but which is far more rational than that and has its roots in two central facts that pervade our politics. First, the UK political system is designed to maintain the rule of two broad tent parties, with political disagreement happening within parties rather than between them. This narrows voter choice and leads to the perfectly rational belief that it's difficult to get the change you want through the ballot box because the parties both occupy similar positions and have shared assumptions about the world and about the limits of what is possible politically. Second, the UK finds itself in a situation where it is falling behind peer countries economically and where wealth disparities are growing. This means that there are real material forces driving people's desire for change that won't be satisfied by the status quo neoliberal politics of the Conservative and Labour parties. Well, that's all for now. Do let me know what you think of Jeremy Corbyn in the comments, good or bad. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, and as always, goodbye and best wishes.